This program is brought to you by the Forbes-featured Freedom Hub Health Plan, the alternative to overpriced and restrictive insurance. The Freedom Hub Health Plan is exactly what you need. By Frequency Medicine Associates, supporting health professionals and laypersons with safe and effective advanced telemedicine-like technology that can scan and help rebalance the root causes of stress and illness. By the Planet Lockdown film, which can be seen on the Freedom Hub's Rumble channel along with many great speakers. And by The Pavilion, a 21st century community hub that brings together many of the disruptive innovations featured by the Freedom Hub, including direct pay healthcare, farm-to-table dining, TED-like Freedom Hub talks, and more. Visit your-mp.com/pavilion solution for details.
Welcome, folks, to Freedom Hub's weekly health webinar. I'm Charlie Froman, joined by my trusty co-host, Jim Graypeck. And let's see here. Here is our home site. Any week you could see who we're having on our 2 webinars each week. Today is the health webinar, and we're going to be talking about the most important part, probably one of the 2 most important parts of healthcare reform, and I'll explain why in a second. And so it's a sharing conversation today. Tomorrow is our broader weekly webinar, All Liberty Issues. A lot of times those cover healthcare too. And as you'll see here, I did insert a bit of a healthcare comment because it was Andrzejewski's exposure of Fauci's payment that got him booted from Forbes after 2,000 columns on government waste. I wonder why it was a Fauci column that got him booted. Jim, I can't figure why that would be so important to those that make those decisions. But at this website, your-mp.com/webinars, you can subscribe for the weekly email, and by doing so, you'll get the Zoom an hour before. Also at this website, if you click Founders Marketplace, you'll see our sponsor, which happens to use the product that our today's presenter will explain. So we all need to make money. Hopefully you can make money by doing good. And I think we do a lot of good by upgrading folks from lousy health insurance to wonderful medical cost sharing. And I'll explain why in a second. Finally, a Democrat, Huffman from California, which is the home of the worst legislation in our former republic, has a bill to innocuously require disclosure of certain provisions used by sharing companies. As a lobbyist, if you don't know, you should know. These are all camels' noses under the tent. They want to say, we just want some disclosure of what you're doing to set up smothering regulation. And it's always on behalf of some special interest contributing to them. In this case, the health insurance companies. They hate competition from us. 2 million people have abandoned insurance for sharing. And the reason they've done so isn't just because of price. ObamaCare priced your local realtor out of the market. They were paying $1,000 a month for healthcare, sometimes more. That's a mortgage payment. And that doesn't even include the deductible, which, by the way, still averages $6,000 despite Biden's fat subsidies for premiums. Now, folks, the outrageous price isn't the only bad thing about insurance. When I talk to my prospects, I'm a licensed health insurance agent, I warn them that no matter how good you think your health insurance plan is, it's going to handcuff your choices from what is called networks. Networks exclude the best doctors in every state, your cancer centers of excellence. So if you get cancer, and by the way, studies now show that musculoskeletal and cardiovascular are not the biggest drivers of health costs in your big group plans. Not quite yet, but soon the CFOs are worried that cancer is going to be your biggest cost driver. Jim, why is cancer exploding so suddenly? I wonder why. Experiment.
Gee, Charlie, couldn't have anything to do with all the toxins we're living with and the other things that are going into our bodies being shot in.
Yeah, it's a coincidence. Sats, it's just coincidence, global warming or something.
Yeah.
So because of that, if you get sick with cancer, heart disease, what good is insurance if you can't go see the best doctor you want to? That hits home with prospects. So the good thing about Obamacare is it, in desperation, unleashed this fairly small dynamic of religious sharing ministries, which exploded. And whenever you have a high price signal, that brings in entrepreneurs that say, why should this only be for Christians or other religious people? Let's use this model for the secular market. And by the way, these religious plans are only for individuals. Why not the small group market? That's where the uninsured folks are. So Tony Dale, a British physician who negotiated prices for Sedera, for Samaritans, a Christian sharing ministry, started Sedera, which was the first big secular sharing company for the broad secular market and then the small group market. And other companies have entered into that market, and there's a few of them, and including Melinda's. Melinda is the right person to present this new wave of sharing companies because not only is she with a great company that, by the way, has been rated #1 in some ratings for the best sharing companies, she's also a longtime nurse. And a lot of my fellow advisors think having nurses as the concierge is a really key ticket to making a good experience for the patient. So she's no exception. She's served in all aspects of the hospital. She's got an MBA too, so she understands sort of the business aspects of this. So with that, Linda, I've said a lot. Why don't you kind of give your initial pitch? Why are you here today? What do you want to get across? And we can go to Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charles. I appreciate that. I think the biggest thing I really want the audience to know or be aware of is I'm coming from an educational standpoint. It's really important for me that you walk away with whatever we say today, that you're a little bit more educated on what your options are. You're a little bit more educated on how to be good medical consumers, and that you have the empowerment to do some of the research yourself instead of relying on somebody else to tell you where you should go, how you should be treated, and what you should be done. I think that's my biggest thing in the medical world that drew me to Zion HealthShare to begin with, is the fact that in the insurance world, your doctor is there to practice medicine, and they are being forced to practice medicine in unsafe ways, maybe, or in ways that are not taught or traditionally noticed to be the best practice. And then they're being forced to send you to other physicians or other providers because maybe they get a kickback and they financially need that, or that's where your insurance says you have to go. And it's not where the best provider is. It's not where the best option for you and your medical needs are, but that's where you have to go. And then that's what brings up the liabilities, I think, in all of this. And we all know the insurance is a risk game. It was developed originally for that risk. It was to help provide some financial assistance for the big major things. It wasn't really designed for the month-to-month things. It was based on risk. And that's where all your premiums come in, and how your monthly payments come in is based on how risky you are to the medical industry. And so if they can find physicians that aren't as good, or maybe are as good, you just never know. They're gonna push the physicians that they require in their networks. I myself would rather just go somewhere else. I'd rather go to the physician I feel comfortable with, the physician that knows me, the physician that I've done research on to make sure they know what they're doing and how to do it. They've got good reviews. They have good outcomes. They've been referred. I mean, we do all of this medical consuming for our general consuming for our TVs, but we don't do that for our medical care. And with Zion Health, we have a great addition to our big group, and it's the medical advocacy team. And that is exactly what they do. They go through every case and find the physician that will work with you, that's highly ranked, that understands how HealthShares work, that understands that you are not insured with the HealthShare, and can give you a self-pay discount. So I love it. I love it. I don't know if there's anything specific anybody wants to know about Zion Health. I'm going to touch some things that you had mentioned that the no networks, the expense of deductibles. My biggest thing with it is to explain how deductibles work, right? We're so excited. We have this deductible. It's only $2,500, but it's $8,700 per family. And in November 15th, we're like, yay, we've paid that. Woohoo! Everybody's having surgery because it's all paid for now, right? So then the entire family has surgery for the month of December because we finally hit our deductibles. And then January comes around and we still need physical therapy. Maybe we've had a complication, maybe we're now infected, or maybe the surgery needs a redo, and you're back to paying all those premiums over and over again until you finally get your deductible paid, and then you can breathe. For us, there should be no reason why you are so stressed out about where the money's coming from, how the money's being paid, and whether you can or cannot pay it. Your job is to let us help you get better. And the only way you can really get better is stress-free and be able to relax and know things are being taken care of. So with Zion Health, we have one IUA. It's the initial unshareable amount. You have 3 choices, and that's all salesy, and I don't want to go through all that, and I'll answer questions however you want. But with that one IUA, you can pay that IUA, and then we will share with everything that has to do with that significant event for years down the line, if that's what it takes. The only time you have to have another IUA with one event is if you've gone 12 months without treatment. So then you'll be required another IUA. But it's so simple. And it's so, when you read through the guidelines, it's so simple. You're like, wait just a minute. This is too good to be true. Did you find that? Have you found that with some of your clients, that it's like, they're like, no, this is too good to be true?
Well, yeah, as well as with the supplementals that we offer for those, initial insured amounts, like the money doubling health matching account that we like to match with the sharing. And it's not for everyone. There is a phase in of any condition you had 2 years prior to enrollment. But there are exemptions to the pre-X phase in. If your cholesterol, blood pressure, and diabetes are well controlled, they're exempt from that phase in. But people need to know that if they've got something in their doctor's record from the past 2 years and it flares up, they're not going to have sharing in the first year. And a set amount in years 2 and 3, and then every year thereafter. But a lot of folks, with pre-X, knowing that still enroll. There's no prohibition, but that is how it's too good to be true. But that's standard for a lot of insurance products, like home insurance. You can't wait till your house burns to get home insurance. So because the prices are so good, $250 is what I say on average per person, give or take. Families are more 30-year-olds or less. You want to get in early, and then you're good for life. Folks, there's a raise hand icon around your Zoom controls. Feel free to raise your hand and ask a question. This is new for folks. So despite how good it is, and despite how many happy customers a lot of us have, it's a slow growth thing. Let's talk about that. So the analogy I give is credit unions. Credit unions are widely known. A lot of folks are members of at least one credit union or have been. And when they go in, they can't really tell the difference, except the prices are good, the service is great. That'll be your experience with the health sharing company. The prices are good, the experience is great, but you're paying a monthly fee, and some companies helping you with the bills. So once you're in, I don't know why you ever want to go back to an insurance company. But what do you think about that analogy at the credit union? There's no shareholders with the credit union. There's no shareholders with the sharing company. So they can drive all the profits back into member benefits. Is that a good analogy?
Yeah, I think that's a great analogy. And I think, the reality is, when you drive up to a bank or you drive up to a credit union, there is still that moment of education, right? You still have to understand where what makes it different. And I think that that's a good point to bring across when you're presenting a HealthShare. Is it is a moment of education. We are so used to handing an insurance card and them taking it and hoping the insurance gods for some reason pay for us. And then we have a bill from the doctor, we have a bill from the anesthesiologist, we have a bill from the hospital, we have a bill from the front desk lady that decided to bill us too. We have, and then, then we're sent to collections for 47 cents because we missed one. It's a system that is unrealistically been so automatic for us. And in Zion HealthShare, it is very, very important, if you decide to join, that you are proactive and you contact us and we work together. We're a team. Without you, we wouldn't be in business. Without us, our job is to help make your HealthShare needs easier. So we're a team, right? So we expect that you'll contact us, we'll contact you. There's a lot of give and take, and we have different departments for some of that too. So I think that's where, go back to your credit union analogy, a bank is a bank, but a credit union will sit with you and maybe do some creative financing or help with the interest rate a little, or because you've been a member for a very long time, grandfather you in things. They have a little bit more movement in what they can and cannot do. And Zion Health builds those relationships too, so that we know you. We want to know you. We want to know how we can help you. It's not like the insurance company where you call up and you're waiting for hours and hours to talk to somebody and you're telling your story and they're like, oh, this is a different department. And then you tell your story, oh, it's a different department. Zion Health, somebody answers the phone within 20 seconds or on the chat within 20 seconds and is a real person in our office. And if they can't help you, they know somebody who can. And I think that's the difference between a bank and a credit union, a HealthShare, and an insurance. I guess that would be.
Can I jump in, Melinda? There's a question comes up about Medicare when you turn 65 and Zion has an upper limit. Is that legal? I mean, legally, or for example, what if we opt out? What if someone decides they want to opt out of Medicare? Because I think that's possible. If
Yes.
that happens, tell me.
That is possible. You can opt out of Medicare, but unfortunately at the age of 65 for that month, you're no longer eligible for Zion HealthShare. You're mixing two entities that are really not compatible, I guess is the best way to say it. And to be honest with you, Medicare is a very, very good program. They pay their bills, they pay on time. And it is one of the government's programs that I really highly feel like you're going to get your money's worth through them.
Right.
I can add to that. All third-party payers, as I put in chat, are going to dump you at 65. That's just a fact of life. And the only way to change that is to change Medicare. And however, as good as Medicare might be, Melinda, as myself with 30 years background in governments and dealing with Medicare, there's a lot of problems with it. And you're going to have gaps when you're old. And we sell the money doubling health matching account, which John Goodwin at Forbes characterized as the best supplement for Medicare. So for example, $140 a month over 3 years is going to double to 10 grand. I have customers that spend more per month to double to 60 grand. That's going to give you the money you need for your teeth work, all the pharma gaps in Medicare, the electives you'll want. So a lot of folks are beefing up on the supplementals to have more options to control the healthcare, because Medicare does have gaps and limits. Medicare Advantage plans are basically HMOs. So they're going to have problems that the networks have ×2. And a lot of good doctors won't accept Medicare. And increasingly, they will dump Medicare because they're sick of the hassle dealing with the government. And we all know that the actuaries are saying the program is going to go bankrupt at some point. So that'll be a topic of future discussion. That's a good question. We do. I mean, the HMA is going to expand. Other sharing companies will start offering older options, but not now. I did want to return, Melinda, to that really horrific example you mentioned about overutilization when the insurance user has paid their deductible and I'm going, woohoo, I can go get my surgeries. That is just a warped mentality. If there are humans out there with that gung-ho attitude to go get cut up. Your company and mine work with a lot of cool cash disclosure entrepreneurs and quality finders. HealthShare Blue Book, for example, I know we have a partnership where if our members allow us to help them shop on quality and price with HealthShare Blue Book's orange, green, red rating system, does the hospital readmit you? Are their doctors pretty lousy? Or are they good? You may think you know what the best doctor is, but guess what? A lot of readmissions from that doctor you want. You go wherever you want. But if you work with us on our carrots, we'll pay the provider directly. You will. Which is convenient for all those bills you mentioned that you get when you have a hospital experience. A lot of different bills. And you will pay them with our cash from the sharing community if you don't want to, have our help to help you shop on quality. But yeah, we're interested in upgrading our patients. If you take the $5,000 IOA, that's a lot of money. There's no sharing help for you until it passes that amount. So let us help you save money. There are great quality finders. HealthShare Blue Book, Prater, Savos in your state is increasingly going to be working with you with a health matching account, with other companies to get those bundled disclosed prices up front. The doctors are going to want them. They are an unhappy bunch. They fell for Sauron's trick to become employees in the hospital, and now they're getting sham peer reviews. They're getting dumbed down and forced on what they can give on standards of care. It's a mess. So, we're the payer for the next revolution in healthcare, and we're going to hold your hand. I've told this story before. My cousin died last year with cancer, and I got him on a sharing plan. And the sharing advocates, like you mentioned, are fantastic. They'll help you find those cutting edge therapies that are always involved with cancer. What are you going to try? Proton therapy, Dr. Brzezinski's immuno-based therapy. Zion is in these sharing companies are great on helping you get the therapies you want worldwide. You're a cash patient. There's no network. Increasingly folks are going to want to go to Tijuana. I mean, that's where the real cutting edge cancer therapists are. We know. So we're going to teach you not to be a foolish overutilizer. We're going to help you find well-priced, good quality specialists. It's so much better.
It's so much better.
Hey, let me jump in. I got a question. You talked about education, Melinda, and I'm curious because I would think you'd want to save money or help reduce your payouts for patients by keeping them healthier, right?
Yes.
So I'd love to know about what programs Zion offers in terms of educating people to maybe it's eat better, to supplements, whatever that might be. And then on the same, along the same lines, do you guys cover natural, some of the natural therapies, other things, or send people, as Charlie's saying, to Tijuana? Well, you need some cancer work, so.
Right. Well, and because we're new, and I'm not giving this as no excuse, because we're new, we're navigating some of those as far as what we can offer our clients or our members in keeping healthier. Right now we have a blog, and that's about our extents as far as, where we are trying to keep you healthier. I think that we've started with our educational department doing a really good job at helping our members become good medical consumers. I think that's where our base is going to be, is if we can teach our members to find the resources, or let us help them find the resources like Savos, like HealthShare Blue Book, that we can help them become better consumers, finding the physician that's going to give them the proper surgery at a higher rate and work with us so that they can understand how the medical system works. And that's part of that, Charles. I think that when we're finally going yoo-hoo in the month of November is because we really don't know how it works. Our worldwide system has just been told, hand them an insurance card, pay this off, and then at the end it's all free, right? That's the mental conception. And we have to teach them that, yeah, maybe you have a $5,000 IUA or a $1,000 IUA or a $2,500 IUA, and that does have to be paid prior to us sharing in your expenses. But that is so much less expensive than going through one surgery through the insurance system. So I would love, yeah, go ahead, David.
Sorry. I'm David Roos. I work with Melinda here at Zion HealthShare. I'm the director of education. So that question kind of put my attention as you were asking it. I think Melinda gave a great response. I would just simply add that we do have in the works that we're going to create an education webpage. We're starting to create video content to try to make this easier to understand, try to get them shorter. When we have the in the near future, we're looking at possible podcasts. We're doing a newsletter now that's going out to all of our members every month to try to give them explaining little videos and explaining, short to help them understand what HealthShares are about. So like Melinda mentioned, as a new company, we are trying to ramp up on improving education. My position's actually new. I've been in here for 6 months. So there's a huge interest in our president to try to make sure that we can be at the forefront of explaining how this works and why it's such a great option for so many people.
Thanks, David.
Indeed, and sort of let me kind of fill it out. I've been selling this for many years, and Charles Ford, I'll answer your question about co-insurance percentage. Why expose someone to a 20, 30, 50,000 co-insurance percentage when with sharing, as long as your cancer lasts multiple years, your out-of-pocket could be limited to $1,000.
Mhm.
So beat that.
Yeah.
To answer your question, Jim, the MEC that we combine working with Zion through Planston has preventive screenings that are required by ObamaCare to be compliant in those 5 states where we have to offer a compliant plan that also is set up in such a way that allows for the health savings account, which 30 million people have, is very popular and can be used for out-of-pocket, some natural care on a limited basis, that's IRS limited. The education that Zion does and we do with our newsletter and our concierge department is good. Explicitly, if you do have a major medical need with sharing companies like Zion, they will allow for natural and integrated procedures after a pre-authorization process, the natural path. Just writes up a plan, gets it approved by the care advocacy team at Sharing, and you're good to go, which is fantastic. And it's cutting edge because that's where the market is going. The real epidemic in this country is chronic disease. And allopathy doesn't have much to offer that in many cases, as people are discovering to their chagrin. So they're going to demand more and more integrated options. The providers are educating themselves to become more integrated. So the fact that Zion allows that with a process is fantastic. So you want to get into that kind of program if you're, kind of a self-thinker. You want to have that kind of hand-holding. And then, you're a cash patient. So as long as the overseas procedure is in English and US dollars, your advocacy team is going to work with you on those options too. So, that's a multi-part answer, but also just indirectly with the tools Melinda mentioned, Healthcare Blue Book, and we use Prater, and they mentioned Savos. In your shopping partnership to get good priced options, that's going to indirectly educate you on options. Mm-hmm. And that process is going to educate you on, why am I doing this? And so many great quality vendors are starting to help you educate. Do you need that back surgery? Do you need that knee surgery? there's a lot of regenerative therapies out there that are showing great efficacy. We're going to help you become a self-educating customer, a patient. You're going to learn on your own in this process that you have options. So that's my long-winded answer, Jim, if that helps.
And self-healing.
And self-healing. To
Yeah.
add to that, so many times you hear, I wouldn't go to that doctor. He just wants to do surgery. He just wants to do surgery. Well, it may not be the doctor that wants to do surgery. It's the fact that the insurance is dictating what they can and cannot do, and they can't do any of these alternative medical practices, right? Maybe the physician has really researched acupuncture, pain injections, stem cell therapy, all of that. And he's introduced that to his group or whatever, and they're all in agreement. But the insurance company has said no, that they pull a kibosh on it. So with Zion Health, as long as it's attached to a need and you can justifiably say why you think that's a good treatment, then of course we're going to look at that, because we think that has some merit. We think that if you come to us and say, I researched stem cell therapy, my physician is on board, he feels like this is what's going to help me out right now to avoid surgery in the future, then let's share in that expense. And I love that. I love that.
Yeah, and in chat, I just put the health matching account that John Goodwin at Forbes has characterized as the best Medicare supplement. Everyone should have an HMA. It's basically a supplemental in cash. So in the spirit of sharing, it operates also like a sharing. That's how the actuarial math is developed there. You want these tools that empower you as a cash patient, because you don't want to be limited by a third-party payer. Even by sharing is better than insurance, but that's what I really promote to my patients, is sharing for major medical and HMAs for out-of-pocket. Dr. Benz, welcome, sir. How are you?
I'm fine, Charlie. How are you doing?
Great to hear from you.
Well, I just thought the conversation was really going in the right direction, but one of the problems with the natural therapies is that doctors can recommend it, but it may not be based on all of the information that's available on the existing health of the patient. There's no really good starting point for each patient. And if you use the DNA program that we have and the artificial intelligence program we have, you get an actual score. And then it tells you exactly what the procedures are, and it shows you the science behind each product or each procedure. And so this is evidence-based personalized medicine. And so they just missed a step in this whole process, because then you can actually see what the benefits will be afterwards. And now you can track how much their score increased, improved. And you can actually use these systems to decide how much to charge different groups of people. And so I just think that knowing what the difficulty of the challenge is, and knowing the specific science-based procedures that have all the studies in PubMed that back it up, that's where then compliance, it becomes something that every one of these sharing organization wants to track. And now you've got a track record you're creating for all of these different evidence-based strategies. So I just say that they're just missing one key element. And a lot of the doctors, both allopathic and the functional medicine doctors, just don't do enough testing. They may get one or two key variables, but they're not getting a whole picture of the whole body. And that's what you have to do. So,
if I can respond to that, Dr. Benz is a great friend to Freedom Hub, and we agree with him completely. We don't have the perfect mousetrap right now. What Melinda's presenting, it's the state of the art in terms of what I promote to my small business clients. She mentioned Savos and Healthcare Blue Book. I did too, and Prater. ADX therapy with Dr. Willems is working with some sharing companies, and he's presented before. I mean, everyone's presented on Freedom Hub, right, Jim, over the 4 years. That's the quality filter. We got to get the bundled pricing to fix the opaque nature and distorted nature of pricing. Quality is hard to figure out. And Dr. Benz, you can add to this. I think we're trying to get you two together. He's trying to, cut down the overutilization of unnecessary surgery. You're trying to get outcomes to filter out the wild west of natural therapies using AI and functional assessment, your blood, DNA, local environment. That's going to really take this cutting edge to the next level. No question, Dr. Benz. That's your point, right, Dr. Benz?
Yes, that's basically the point. And I would say the same thing with surgery. I was told 60 years ago that I needed surgery on my knees. 5 doctors said that, and here I am without any surgery on my knees. And 30 years ago, same group of doctors said I needed surgery on my back. No surgery yet. And so there's ways to avoid these surgeries because they're usually caused by not just structural problems, they're caused by disruptions in 5 different pathways of how the body operates. And you'll usually find that inflammation and antioxidant pathways and immune pathways, all these pathways are leading to these problems that they think requires an operation, but it's just not true. I'm a personal example of that, and I've helped dozens and dozens of people to avoid operations just because they missed a step. They missed the things that caused the dysfunction that led to the need for an operation. So if you catch all those things ahead of time, and we catch almost every chronic illness 5 to 10 years before it actually manifests. And so whether it's diabetes or heart disease or cancer, if you can catch it 5 to 10 years earlier, when cells are starting to change before they're diagnosed as a disease, you can change the whole equation by 90%. 90% of chronic disease is preventable.
Well, I'm going to add to that. I think that that's part of the educational process too, right? We're so used to waiting until something's wrong before we go in and even have it checked out. If we can be more proactive about it, and with the new technologies, Dr. Benz, that you're mentioning, I think that the more we are proactive and understand and change our habits early on, then the healthier we're going to be. But right now we're used to eating those donuts until we're 350 pounds and then we want it fixed, right? But that's how our medical system has trained us to be. And I think it's going to take years to re-educate. And I'm totally love the younger generation because they're more into being more receptive to the AI. They're into more receptive to the changes and how their body works and things like that. And if we can educate those people from the very beginning, we're going to have a healthier population in the end, for sure.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think they are more generally receptive. The problem is they want to know about it in 5 minutes. And this is the problem when I go to employers and they say, well, we can't do a 2-hour workshop. We can't get people to last for more than 15 or 20 minutes. And I just say to them, well, I think you're wrong. And I think what will happen is after the 2-hour workshop, majority of people are going to say they wanted more instead of less. And if that doesn't happen, everything I did for you was free. I've been offering that to people for 25 years. Not one employer asked for their money back, not one, because every feedback of every person in every age group said, we wanted more of that. So I think that the younger generation is spoiled. They want instant solutions. I had an executive in a group in Jacksonville, and when he was told that he was going to have to participate in a 3-hour workshop, he made a gagging sound. Put his finger in his mouth and said, "Oh my God, make me gag." Well, after the workshop was over, he came up to me and he said that he told me that story, and he said, "Oh, by the way, can you come and do a workshop for my family and for my friends and for my other companies? And so it's a misperception. He wasn't even a young person. He was just a person and a big executive that wanted instant answers. And I said, if you don't build the framework for how your body works and how it responds to the different things that are going on in your life, then you don't understand. You don't have a basic understanding of the things that I'm going to talk about. So I have to lay that groundwork. That doesn't take 5 minutes. It takes an hour and a half. Then I can tell you the really good stuff to do. But now it's going to sink in because now you understand exactly how your body works.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Benz. Mark Aubrey, I think you're someone that also helps consult with the executives on what they should be doing, right? What's on your mind?
Yeah, just to hit on a couple of points that Dr. Benz made, and I think it fits in the whole conversation here. There's a recent study that came out, I think it was a 10 or 15-year study that showed that 90% of interventions were actually medically unnecessary. 90%. So that speaks very specifically to what Dr. Benz was talking about. Secondly, we talk about how it's the doctor's fault and they only want money, or we want, at the end of the day, doctors are human beings, and human beings are incentivized or are motivated by incentives. And if a surgeon is motivated by doing surgery, then that's what they're going to recommend. If someone is motivated by doing something, then that's what they're going to recommend. So we have to be careful. And I think that's a big part of what we have to do in moving forward, and what I call the new health economy, and what we're all talking about is that we have to figure out what the incentives are. What are the incentives? And I think Dr. Benz hit on this as well, is that he had to find what the incentives are. And the incentives are, once people realize what the information is, then they can become better consumers. And I think that's what Charlie and Melinda, y'all have been talking about. It's like, how do we find this balancing of incentives between providers and patients? And I think that's what this discussion is all about. So I wanted to throw my 2 cents in and give those stats and say that really enjoyed the conversation.
And Mark, don't sell yourself short. You're kind of doing what a lot of us are trying to do together. You're trying to build the network of integrated physicians that we want for these group plans and for everyone else, because you mentioned 90% inefficacy of procedures. Let's talk about what's in the chat. The chronic disease epidemic is over half the country. There are some studies that blame certain overuse of certain procedures for that chronic disease epidemic.
Especially in children, yes.
Yeah, exactly. So with AI, functional assessments, a network of integrated doctors, I think that's going to be very popular in the future.
I do
so
too.
Thank you, Mark, for all you do.
Thank you.
Can I add something there, Charlie?
Yeah.
The problem now is that most of the functional medicine doctors are making so much money, they don't really need to do anything different than they're already doing. And so they're falling into the same trap that the allopathic doctors are. And so I've put my AI platform out there for a couple of dozen doctors over the last 3 or 4 years. And every one of them has said, wow, this is great, this is good. But then when push comes to shove, they don't commit the resources to training the people to do it properly, and then get the information to them so that then they can integrate that with their blood work and their other things that they've considered. And so this is a massive educational program, not just for the individuals, for the patients, but for the doctors themselves. And that's been one of the biggest barriers, is that they don't want to learn new stuff because they don't have to. They've already got a system that works for them. So we need to change the motivation and the incentives for them. And as far as employees go, the company that I'm working with in South Carolina introduced profit sharing based on the savings of the healthcare system. And guess what? The whole thing flipped over, and now all the employees that weren't interested are now saying, oh, you mean we can make $10,000 a year extra in profit because we got our people healthy again? Okay, we're into that. So it's called ESOP. And these ESOP programs there's 7,000 companies in the United States that that have systems that allow people to actually measure their overall performance in their organization. And now we're adding the health system to it, and they're getting improvements in their return on investment, 20, 30, 40%. And so we now know this is possible. You just have to get the right employer with the right culture, with the right education program, and then take your time, get it done properly, build your case in the way that I'm talking about. Yeah, you can go for the quick fix with the reduction in copays and the reduction in premiums. Those are all good, but most employers have systems where the employees don't pay or see anything. And so this is a real problem. They think it's free. It's not free. You have to let them know that it's not. And that's where the medical cost sharing programs can come in and start to use that kind of a process to get people to understand it. Then you have to layer on the incentives. And so incentives are massive. I couldn't agree with you more.
I'm gonna, if you mind if I add to that, I'm so sorry, but I find that same thing in the HealthShare world. Like when I'm presenting to an employer who isn't familiar with how it works, and we get maybe one or two of their employees on the program under their employer group, which is fantastic. I love that we can do the minimum of 2 employees on an employer group, because at least the employee has an opportunity for some retention, and we have an opportunity for some education, right? But sometimes it takes a full year or somebody having an experience with our group before the rest of the group come along. And that's kind of where the profit sharing is too. It takes 1 or 2 people to stand up and try it first before the rest of the group come along. And that is a pattern throughout everything we do. With your AI, it may take a younger generation to start doing it because it's the consumer that wants to know. Me, myself, I'm like super intrigued on how this works. What's the DNA work? How does it all work as a consumer? But as an old practicing provider, I may not be that interested in providing it because it's going to take more time and effort. And maybe I have this misconception that somebody's not interested in learning, and it takes that one person in my clinic that finally does it for a year to go by to go, yay, it works, or it becomes more of a norm. So it's a cycle of a pattern for sure.
Well, you have to tap into who the decision maker is that can lead the way. And right now I'm working with a new DNA company in Canada, and they're saying, okay, let's just give it to the executives free. And I say, okay. So they're willing to give a really expensive genetic platform free, as long as the person who's getting it is a key decision maker and can then say to everybody else, well, this is the direction we're going to go in. And then you can get them to come along in this journey the way you're talking about gradually. But if you don't get that first buy-in, in fact, I have a cultural assessment tool, and I use it for every prospect. If they don't pass the cultural assessment tool, I won't even do business with them. And they just say, well, what are you talking about? You're missing a $25,000 or $30,000 contract. I said, I don't care. I don't want to be part of a failing exercise. So you're either going to get your culture right and get your attitude right, or go and do something else. You don't want to work with me.
On that, George, are you available to unmute yourself? Because I just enrolled a small group with Sharing, and it was a short education process, but the COVID hysteria actually motivated them to want to do something better. And I just had a new employee there. Once she saw the others enrolling, she started to have more trust, and now she's in with Sharing. And a lot of them are combining with health savings accounts. But if George can unmute himself, I know he uses Sharing, but he's a large group advisor. And with Trump's ICRA expansion, the individual coverage health reimbursement arrangement, that is the tool that's going to introduce Sharing to larger groups. And I have agents, one in California, that's talking to a 200-person group, and this is really going to explode the Sharing market once we get to larger groups. And so that's something I hope George can comment on. George is probably talking to a big group right now. That's why he's not saying hello. Go ahead, Linda. You're next.
My question is to all of you. Has to do with two issues, the digital medicine and the genome interference, let's see, for therapy, changing the genes. For the digital medicine, you can see today two videos at Children's Health Defense. In Europe, they are much more advanced. In Greece, will be a mandate to have digital medicine everywhere. Israel might be the same. So for me, this is not medicine, it's a crime against humanity. The genome, if you go to Genome Web, you will see daily webinars and efforts, research in different ways how to work on our genes, supposedly to prevent, to help, to cure. A second crime against humanity. So think about if you have a position against that, because everything else is, and also I agree with the one saying that the best medicine is prevention. Like the old saying, Chinese, bad doctors treat diseases, doctors treat early stages, but the good doctors prevent diseases. And my students in medicine, I asked the question and I said, so what type of doctors are you going to become? They told me very bad doctors, of course, because they treat disease. So then one said, okay, Dr. Versu, if we become those type of doctors, then we're not going to have positions. I said wrong, because your quote clients will be the entire population for prevention. Then we will need much more doctors than what we have now. So think about if you have a position of that, it's a nightmare for me. Thank you. Yeah.
Melinda, any response?
I love that. She was like, it's a nightmare for me. That's cute. I think that one of the things with the movement, with the DPC movement and these physicians coming out of the traditional insurance world and starting their clinics doing the membership-based prices is going to maybe be a bridge to that, because they're coming from treating diseases mostly to bridging to knowing their patient at a deeper level and being able to have time with their patients. Instead of being reimbursed for 20 minutes, they can sit there for an hour because, you know, you've already paid your membership fee for that physician, and they can get to know you. They have an opportunity to find different studies and maybe work with AI and maybe I'll offer alternative things that will see a bridge in that. It's going to take years. It's not going to be something that happens overnight. And unfortunately, because I'm over 50, it probably will, I will not see a preventative opportunity for myself, but my kids and my grandkids will with this type of movement. I really am excited about how the DPCs and the doctors are coming out and collectively doing good, because that's really what we all want to do as providers. That's why I went into nursing, was to do good. And you can't really do good when somebody approaches when they're already too sick. But that is how we've been taught the medical system works. You don't go to the doctor till you're sick. And we've been talking preventative medicine for a very long time, but it's now an opportunity for us to work with the different groups to provide that bridge for sure.
I'll add to the DPC comment. You know, a lot of folks don't want to pay a monthly fee to an allopath, but it's a good cost benefit analysis for a big family or someone with chronic disease. You're going to get your money's worth. But what bolsters your point with the holistic approach by getting that much more time with the patient, in our DPC presentations over the years, pleasantly, we've discovered that a lot of these allopaths no longer are just allopaths. They're becoming integrated because their patients are demanding more. Dr. Benz even presented 2 or 3 years ago on how to coach your doctor, because patients are self-diagnosing with Dr. Google, and they don't want to be bullied by their allopath. And Dr. Benz ran a seminar here on how to talk to your limited thinking doctor. But a lot of these DPCs are becoming integrated just by their own dynamic. They're in a new environment of a monthly subscription where there's no pressure. So they get to, which is really neat. That's what we want. You know, Mark Aubrey is doing the integrated network. So that's really good for the DPC growth market that we want to support. Go ahead, Christina, I think you had your hand up. Are you still there? Our medical tourism friend?
Yes, hello, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. I know we're getting close to the end here. Yes, I've been participating, obviously, Charles, in your webinars here for a long time, and I see more and more how healthcare is going to, you know, direct pay and cash pay and just all these better options that we can get more care and more value and more bang for the buck out of what we do. And, you know, I still see, you know, medical tourism and, you know, some of us anyways, the way we're able to deliver it and provide really a whole entire kind of 360-degree care processes along with, you know, the you know, part of the recovery and this kind of thing. So always, you know, it's very exciting. And I have to agree with, forgot who was commenting about the incentivizing. Such an important thing. Be careful what you incentivize. And that really all comes down to kind of the payment model. And I think that people that have commented on that, it's really kind of the problem we're facing in healthcare is when things incentivized. And so that's all I'll say for now, because I know we've got a couple other hands up. But thanks, Charles.
And Melinda, just to remind folks, as a cash patient, there's no networks or no limits where you go for your major medical needs. And if you're seeing a doctor overseas, as long as the bill is in English and US dollars, it's shareable as long as it's within the guidelines. Is that correct?
Yeah, as long as you can be a member with Zion HealthShare as long as you have a US address. And then anything overseas is shareable as long as we can transfer in English and US dollars. Yes.
Yeah. And the prices usually are pretty good overseas, but if not, you know, you always have your price negotiating team, which is a fact of life for any third-party payer. If the hospital is an outlier in their charges, you know, negotiation is after the fact kind of a dynamic that has to happen. But eventually, within a month or so, you'll get your money to pay the provider.
And what we found too with that negotiation process, we've actually found it better for the member to negotiate. If the member shows up as a self-pay and asks for a self-pay discount, they're actually going to get a better discount than if we try to negotiate. And we found that over and over again, because as we contact or if we try to negotiate a bill for a member, they're seen as a third-party payer. And so the member themselves get a better deal.
Yeah, you know, I'm sure we coach our patients. No need to mention any details. Just identify yourself as a cash patient when you're with a doctor or a hospital, and then ask for a discount. That's all you need to do. And then if it's discretionary and you have time, work with our concierge, your care advocate, who will use Healthcare Blue Book to work with you to choose a good quality specialist and get that pre-negotiated price up front. That's the ideal. There's no negotiation needed after that.
Right. That is ideal. And I think that's one of the things that I really try to reiterate all the time when I'm presenting is you are in control. So you come to us, let us help you with our medical advocacy group, our maternity group, our long-term care group, our member needs group, but be proactive with us so that we can help you be proactive with them. Go ahead. It's amazing when we can prepay. I love it.
And if you work with us, we'll pay the provider directly, you will, and we'll cut your IUA by some amount. So you'll get your financial incentive. Last question, Charles Ford, go ahead. Let me ask you to unmute.
Yeah, my only very simple question. Will Zion balance bill for an employer, or are they going to have to pay it individually on each policy?
Okay, so repeat that. maybe explain it, just
give an
clarify it.
example,
Yes.
Charles.
All right, the example is you have 15 employees and they're all on the Zion plan and the employer is paying the premium. Will you send the employer an invoice with all 15 on there, or what are your capabilities in that area?
Got it. Yes. So we will send an invoice with all 15 on there. So when they sign up through us, they sign up under that employer group, and then we attach them under the employer group. So the invoice that the employer gets has the member's number, as well as all of their elections, whether they have the IUA and the prescription or preventive or telemed or LifeWorks, and then their final amount billed. So the employer is responsible for that total bill. And then however they take the money out of the employee's check to subsidize that, that's up to them.
If I can just build on that, so the list bill, which is what we call it, that I worked on this past month with a chiropractic office, and 5 employees elected to enroll. They love the simplicity. So it's not a true group plan. It's a list bill where these are individual policies that the workers take with them when they leave. They can keep paying the monthly fee, the monthly share amount themselves if they want, which is great. This helps with the portability problem that infects healthcare. And the employer loves it because it's not a true group plan. It's just a list bill, a bill of the list of everyone on it, totaled. And then, like Melinda said, if they want to deduct from payroll the cost or all of it, that's up to them. Depends, what kind of retention dynamic they want to set up with the company. If they deduct it from payroll, sometimes they may want to bonus everyone. It's got to be to every employee, not just those who enroll. To make the employee whole, they can if they have the budget for it. And then if there's a sick employee, they'll go get an exchange plan with the subsidies that are there for premiums. And so it's a really popular program.
Yeah.
Charles, does that explain it? You're muted, Charles. I hope it did.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Yeah, up to 49 employees at this point. With the ICRAs, we may be able to go to larger groups at some point. They do exist here and there. The problem is with 50 employees, you have new Obamacare requirements and ERISA requirements, so it gets a little bit more technical. Dr. Benz, real quick, please.
Yeah, I think that you need to get some incentives up front. And one of the incentives could be register all the correct organizations that do functional medicine education, and give your physicians a bonus for registering and completing those courses. The second thing is do some testing with some of the employees. Women from age 20 to 50 should get thermography for free, because it's probably going to avoid, along with vitamin D3 levels, 70, 80, 90% of all breast cancers. So go where the proof is, go where the action is. We had that one very close to being done. Then one of the medical cost sharing companies backed out of it. They shouldn't have. That was a big mistake. So spend some money to save some money is my byline.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that advice. I think that as we move forward, some of those things we'll definitely be able to incorporate in our guidelines. I think that part of it, like for just now, we're the basic guidelines, but as we move forward, that may be something that we can offer employees or members in the preventive section of that. That's a good point. I wanted to reiterate some of Charles' stuff too. The nice thing about HealthShare and Zion HealthShare, working with employees and employers or big groups, is that we have a minimum of 2, but we don't have a maximum number. And once you hit that MEC plan or whatever, we do have some opportunities to navigate that as well. But we have a lot of employers who have employees who have opted out of insurance because maybe it's too expensive to come out of their paycheck too. And so we can work with those employees and still provide the employer an option for their employee group of those who even opted out. So I think that having the mobility of an employer to determine what plans, what IUA options, how they're going to bill their employees. Like, are we going to say after a year, we're going to put $200 toward it, or after, the first 6 months, or we're only going to do 5,000 IUA member only. It gives the employer so much opportunity to navigate what they can afford if they want to provide everything for their employees versus just telling their employees this is an option.
Exactly. And we will have presenting at some point in the future, I'm booked through February, an ICRA expert who is using sharing for the bigger companies. So this is the future for individuals or groups. Melinda, before we say goodbye, any last minute final comment and how folks can reach you? And I put in chat the link because, design is part of our package. It is a sponsor of this, and you will help our freedom of effort by using this link for your introduction to design and sharing. Thank you very much.
Yes. Two things. One, the health matching account, the HMAs. I totally love those. I also have my health and life insurance. And so when I present, sometimes I'll bring HMAs up, and I've noticed you've mentioned it a couple of times. I love the fact that you can utilize that HMA amount for your IUAs. So really, you're in this for fairly inexpensive. I believe you can even use your HMA once you build it up for some of your monthly expenses if you want to use that card. Two is that I work with Zion Health primarily with employers and with groups. And so if you are looking at adding a group or adding employers, it's me. So when you call in or when you make an appointment, there's 5 of us on our team. And that's how we get to know you as employers and as groups. And that's how we get these opportunities. Thank you, Charles, so much for this opportunity. And Jim, nice to meet you. Because without you guys out here being the boots on the ground, and without your pushing the educational component, we wouldn't exist. And we want you to know how much we appreciate you and every effort that you do in helping us.